I only understand getting in the building.
Right. Right.
So I go to a temp agency and I get a gig at Universal Music Group, and it's admin services.
Okay.
And I was the dude who I sat at a desk, made sure that your photo was taken for your ID. So I have a temp ID.
Wow.
I have a paper ID. Doesn't have my picture on it.
Yep.
I got to show it with 3 other forms of ID, and I got to lift my sack when I come into security. But I'm taking everybody else's picture,
Yeah.
so that they
So
can
you can
be
get in the
shown
building.
as staff. And and I'm like, oh, I could take my own ID picture.
And is the Universal building at this point? It's still on Broadway.
This is on 8th. Yeah,
8th.
This is Worldwide Plaza.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm there. I'm in the same building as Def Jam. Brian is at Def Jam at the time, so I would go and I would see my friend.
Yep.
And I would take lunches, and I wouldn't stay by the desk, and it rubbed them the wrong way because I'm making friends. I'm meeting people. I'm being me.
Right.
I am picking up. I am exhibiting the social graces that I'd gathered through a tumultuous stretch of
Right.
being a dickhead kid
Right.
who eventually, came back into his own and learned how to speak to people and connect on a human level.
Yep.
So I'm speaking to people. I'm connecting with the ADR staff. I'm connecting with the label staff. I'm meeting folks. I'm going to kick it with Brian for a little bit during the day. I'm roaming the halls. I'm talking to Jeff Dixon at DTP. Like, I'm connecting in a meaningful way with folks. And that didn't sit well with the woman who oversaw my position. She was white and hated. And yeah, so I was eventually let go.
Okay.
I was asked. Sorry, my assignment wasn't renewed.
Got it.
And at that point, I was the longest tenured. Just for kind of scope, I was there for a couple of months, and the longest anybody had been able to stay was 2 pay periods. So 2-week stretches.
Yeah. So to say the screening was probably exhausting.
Yeah,
Alone.
it was. So I got asked to leave, and or didn't get asked to come back. I was like, all right, fuck it.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks later, I'm back in the building. Brian asked me, he was like, yo, what are you doing? Like, do you want to come in? Knowing that I knew new media, knowing that I knew that I was doing MySpace pages, that I took to things quickly.
Yeah.
He brings me in to work in the new media department.
Now, what year is this?
This is 2005.
So this is 2005 Def Jam.
2005 Def Jam.
So
Sean Carter is the president.
I was going to say, Sean Carter is the president. There's Young Jeezy. There's Rick Ross.
Rick Ross was there. Shakira Stewart, like
Shakira Stewart.
Like there's
So it's like this all-star, not only roster of artists,
undeniable.
but you also have
Mariah Carey, Bon Jovi.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no, it was undeniable.
So you walk into that, and you obviously you walk in there as yourself, as this person with immense social skills, a ton of business skills. Was any of that initially intimidating to you?
Yes.
What part of it was intimidating?
All of it.
Okay.
All of it. It felt like there was zero room. There was no room for any strikes. You know, everything had to be a base hit at minimum. But it felt like it should be a home run because all I ever saw were home runs.
Yep.
From the outside looking in, before being in the building, all I ever knew was that, oh, this sailed clear out the park. Everything that they do is 450 feet and better.
Yep.
So that was intimidating, just kind of not knowing if my standard of excellence would scale. Thankfully, it did.
Yeah.
And I was, it's from digital campaigns with Rihanna, with Mariah, like overseeing the messaging for Island Pop and Island Rock, and being that, like, doing the marketing communication for the level, like do it for the label, pardon me, and being that kind of, being the voice and being the personification of that, and knowing the reach of that. It goes away quickly. Like, the jitters go away the moment that you have to perform.
Right.
And so, thankfully, performance kicked in, and the jitters kind of faded away, and I I had zero worries about being myself at any point. And it was just me. And it
Yeah.
like was whether it was joking with staff and the whole like not like I would go and I would be me loudly at every single turn. Not loud in obnoxious fashion, but loud in a fashion where like I'm not going to shield this
Right.
because I had done too much to that point, and too much had been poured into me for me to downplay
Right.
who I was or how I was.
Right.
So yeah, it was intimidating initially just because there's a standard of excellence.
Yep.
And I quickly realized that my standard of excellence was on par with that one.
Right.
And yeah.
And because that does translate, right? The standard of excellence, but it only translates because of something that you mentioned earlier, which is the incremental work, right?
Right.
And when you just continue to put theoretically one foot in front of the other, put your head down and do the work, it's not going to bother people that you're showing up as you and that you're being yourself in those rooms. So, and then to that point, the standard of excellence translates. So you fit in this building while standing out, and you're working on the biggest artists in the world who were all on that label at that time. You're working on some of those artists' biggest projects to this day. Walk me a little bit into those rooms, and we don't have to mention any particular project or any particular artist, but what was the process like for you when it was album time? Because when it's album time for one of the bigger artists, everything in the building pretty much stops.
Well, for as much as I wasn't a fan of it initially because no one likes to feel like they're struggling financially, and I wanted the prestige, and I had like...
You wanted the T&E?
I wanted the T&E, and I had the Kanye thing. I was like, damn, these niggas that much better than me?
Yep.
Like, I knew that I could hang and knew, but like, there's work that has to be done. And so like, you don't get the positioning that others get, which now I couldn't be more grateful for the way that my trajectory carried me.
Right.
It was 100% for my benefit. When it came time for those projects, there was no room to falter. You know, like it was offer your idea. It was not best idea. I mean, it was best idea wins.
Yep.
But it had to be best idea presented. And if you didn't, shit was blood sport.
Right.
Like if you didn't offer something that was immediate, like if you didn't say something that stuck.
Yeah.
Or if you didn't present in a way that felt like it carried or felt like it had some stickiness to it, you were dead in the water. Especially where like your kind of your personal presentation, like who you are, how you present, and what's associated with you carries just as much as, if not more than, your professional presentation, because your professional presentation is attached to the way that personal presents. So it was, the intimidation went away because I didn't have there was no bandwidth to fail. I didn't allow myself that bandwidth I couldn't allow myself that bandwidth to falter because I was afraid of what that, like, I didn't have another strike to give. So
you didn't want to see the other side of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.